So you look pretty good today, Devon.
Thank you.
You weren't dressed up in your collared shirt you had last time, but
I know, a little bit more lackadaisical this time around, you know?
yeah, looks good though. Looks good.
Thanks.
So how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself? How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there. I'm honestly I had a little bit too late of a late night last night. So I'm surviving. I'll say the least. So but the Celtics are also surviving too. I mean, you told me just before we got on here, you had some updates about Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. So today's gonna be the day for Celtics fans, and it's gonna be the fate of how far the Celtics are gonna progress in the playoffs this year. Today's the day. So I'm glad I came in today to talk about it. Today's the day that Kyrie Irving is going to go in and get his knee checked out by whatever surgeons the Celtics have decided to get it checked out by.
Dr. James Andrews at all, or do you think?
I honestly,
he seems like a popular choice.
Yeah, he does seem like he's a really popular choice with football players. I know that. I don't know about basketball. I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever who it is. But either way, they're going to go in and check it out today. And today's basically going to be the day whether we find out Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play in the playoffs at all, or if they're going to have to shut him down for the rest of the season. So
pretty much make or break. I mean, I'll admit. When Gordon Hayward went down at the beginning of the season, that was essentially make or break as well. But
yes.
But I also wanted to talk to you about your article you sent me. Also, you can find that on CLNSmedia.com. This is Devon Clements, by the way. If you tuned in last time he was on, we talked a little Celtics when Jimmy was in. Jimmy isn't here. Just so anybody who was confused at all, no, this is not Jimmy. This is Devon Clements. He is your high school. He covers high school sports, I believe, for the Standard Times. Also covers NBA. And do you also do football for CLNS, or is it just NBA?
I don't. I do football on my podcast, the Go
You do?
Podcast. Yes,
Right.
I do that in the fall. But for now, I just strictly Celtics.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and what's the Twitter handle they can reach? I follow you, but I just can't memorize it.
It is at CLNS Dev.
CLNS Dev. You give him a follow. You get some good information. So you sent me this article because I think you finally realized I was right from last time we talked about Average Al, that he is pretty much showing it, kind of proving my point, I guess. And I guess Lou Merloni, he kind of started that whole title of that conversation with him. And you went on to explain how he's underperforming kind of on both sides of the ball, especially on offense, averaging under 10 points in the last however so many games. I mean, a pretty good stretch. And he's also had the most amount of games I saw in that, I think it was 17 games under 10 points this season, which is pretty significant when you're supposed to be kind of like the power forward here. So if you want to just kind of expand on that?
Yeah, so actually, since I've written that article, he's had another game under 10 points, so I'll make that 18 now.
18 now,
I believe it's 18 overall in the season, and now I believe it is 7 in the last 18 games he's had under 10 points. So, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of where a majority of his poor play has been coming. It's been coming over the last couple of months of basketball for him and the Celtics. I mean, what I did was my task for that article was to compare Al Horford to other guys getting paid similar money to him for this year. So I picked a guy right below him and a guy right above him on the list for the salaries.
Yeah, you had Melo and you had
Melo and DeMar DeRozan.
That's right, on the Raptors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, DeMar DeRozan, it's pretty self-explanatory how he's been this year. He's on the first place Toronto Raptors team in the Eastern Conference. They might go into the playoffs with the first seed for the first time ever in franchise history. So that kind of gives you an idea as to the extent of how well they're playing. And DeMar DeRozan is at the center of that. He's stepped his game up. He's transformed his game this year. He's playing at an unbelievable level. Definitely worth the money this year. I think he's getting paid like $100,000 more than Al Horford right now. It's really, really close.
Yeah, scraps.
Yeah, scraps. But just to kind of give you a perspective as to the people we're talking about here. And then you got a Carmelo Anthony who's on the back end of his career right now. He's averaging about 16 points, 6 rebounds.
He's never cared about defense.
Yeah, he's never cared about defense.
Yeah.
But, he's on the Oklahoma City Thunder team right now with Russell Westbrook and Paul George.
Isn't that crazy, too? He's on the Oklahoma. It's weird. Maybe it's weird for us because we grew up with Carmelo, at least being a prominent player, at least when he was playing against Kobe, LeBron, all those guys. It's weird seeing him be like such a minor kind of figure on OKC.
It is.
And on a team that's already not going to – everyone kind of knows they're not going to really get past the Western Conference Finals at all.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to all those guys on that team because I think aside from Paul George has always shown that he can be a very unselfish basketball player. But, Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony, they've had their times. I mean, especially more Russell Westbrook when Kevin Durant left. But they've both had their selfish tendencies over their career. So to see them all come together and finally, be able to be a second fiddle or a third fiddle on any given night, it shows how these guys really want to win a championship and how dedicated they are to getting that ring. And, back to what I was saying before about both of these guys, though, I think me personally, with Carmelo Anthony, you could debate whether he's really worth the money or not this year. But compared to a guy like Al Horford, they've done exactly what they've been asked to do. DeMar DeRozan and Carmelo Anthony this year. They've been Carmelo Anthony's become a shooter that the Thunder want him to do because that's all they want him to do is just shoot the ball. They don't care about his defense.
That's all he wants to do anyway. He's happy with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just want him to be a spot-up shooter, and that's exactly what he's doing. DeMar DeRozan, he's performing better than he has in past years, and he's been an all-star for every single year that I can think of so far. But, back to what we were saying about the under 10 point scoring efforts. So Al Horford had 17 games this year where he's scored under 10 points.
Now 18, exactly.
Now 18. DeMar DeRozan had 5, and Carmelo Anthony had 7. So those two guys didn't even add up to the amount that Al Horford has been unable to score 10 points this year.
No. So because the sense I got from your article is that because you go back and forth. You made great points too. You kind of laid it all on the line and kind of told it how it was. But from the opinion standpoint and for what you have, I couldn't tell if you were trying to compare. Say that his contract, his worth for his contract, what he's producing for what he's getting paid is similar to what Melo and I'm always forgetting the guy.
DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, and DeMar DeRozan are putting out themselves. Is a similar worth from what they're both getting. So
basically, all I was trying to do is compare him to other guys that are getting paid the same money. But I was trying to, lay it out for people that might not understand why Al Horford gets criticized so much. When you're getting paid that much money in the NBA or in any professional sport, you have certain stipulations that you're supposed to abide by, And for basketball, when you think of the most paid player on the team, the best player on the team is usually how, it evens out. Unfortunately, it hasn't gotten to that point now because many players are overpaid. But, let's say back in the 80s and 90s when guys are getting paid that kind of money, they're the best player on the team. They're scoring the most points. They're the leader on the team. That is what a guy with making that much money is supposed to be able to bring to a team. And hence why he's getting paid that kind of money.
Is that kind of money worth 12.7 points a game?
No, it's not. But I continued on the article by saying, now the discrepancy between all of three guys doesn't seem that much when you take into consideration how many rebounds and assists Al Horford gets every single game.
True. I mean, he is the biggest guy in the team. I mean,
yes.
I mean, the way I look at it is, especially, I think it was when they played OKC at home too. I saw him getting tossed around down low. I think everyone saw that highlight. That was like probably the epitome of that. I think it was it the 5 or the 7 point game he had, and you look at it, it doesn't really even matter. I mean, yeah, rebounds obviously matter, but at the end of the day, if someone gets you, he's still getting like usually under 10 rebounds, probably about 9 rebounds a game, I'd say. Like I think his average is 7.4 rebounds a game actually. So I mean, I don't think that makes up enough, in my opinion, for his lack of scoring. I mean, when he's out there, he's giving you 5 points a game and giving you 9 extra chances to score again.
But there's one thing you're leaving out here. Okay, he's a big man. He rebounds. But he's also averaging almost 5 assists this year. 5 assists per game. Okay, so that is what separates him from Carmelo Anthony and DeMar DeRozan. His ability to facilitate the ball at his size. There's no other big man in the league that can facilitate the ball like he can. So when you take that in consideration, you look at his averages, you say, okay, there's not that much of a discrepancy between him, DeMar DeRozan, and Carmelo Anthony when it comes to their ability to, make plays on the floor. But now that he's only scoring 5, he's having these games like he did against OKC, against the New Orleans, where he's only putting up 5 points a game, and he's also only getting 4 rebounds or 2 assists. That's when I begin to criticize him more, because the way I look at it is, okay, if you're not going to rebound and you're not going to facilitate the ball on offense, then make sure you're scoring baskets.
Exactly.
And if you're not doing that, then make sure you're getting rebounds or getting assists.
And to your point also, I mean, I have the stats here. 4.8 assists per game, rather, for Al Horford. And that's actually, right behind Kyrie Irving, who's your point guard, for 5.1. So that is a good asset he has. And I think that's well known. It's probably been an asset he's had most of his career, but probably wouldn't be highlighted when he was on the wow, I'm blanking, man. When he was on Atlanta, yeah, Jesus. But I also wanted to know, do you think that maybe his offensive lack of production, I guess, in this last this last year, I guess I'd say. You can say this last season, he's had a lack of offensive production for him. I want to pull this up too, because I want to see the amount of three-pointers he's taken in the last few years. Because I remember, I think Glenn Ordway was talking about it on WEI this past week, how his first 1 or 2 seasons, he was starting off with, I think he was 0 for 2 from the three-point line, and then 0 for 3 from the three-point line, and then all of a sudden it jumped to 12 for 18 for 135 or something like that. I mean, can you explain that? Is that just because the league growing into the three, which is stupid? Why is he still taking 3-pointers? I mean, stay down low.
Yeah, so this is the conversation we had last time I came.
Yeah, exactly.
The 3-point shot and how it kind of changed the way the NBA is played now. Guys like Steph Curry came into the league, and all of a sudden, what's the most coveted shot in the game is the 3-point shot. If you can make a 3-point shot consistently, above 40%, then you're worth a lot in the NBA right now, and that's just how it is. And we talked about, how it could just be a phase right now and blah blah blah. But Al Horford understands that he's not going to get you. He's not going to get you 20 and 10 every single night. But what he can do is space the floor out. He can facilitate the ball. He can do so many different things, even on defensive side of the ball. He might not have to be the biggest guy. He might go against someone like a Steven Adams or an Anthony Davis, and he might not be able to stop them every single time. But he's going to do the things here and there, like rotating on a pick and roll situation. He can cover 1 through 4 or even 5 if he needs to. He can get his block shots or get his steals when it counts the most, and that's what he values a lot. But the fact that he's able to now move back to the 3-point line and make a 3-point shot, I think it's about 42% of the time right now. That means a lot because he understands that he might not be the biggest guy out there, so NBA organizations might not value him like they value other big men. But a guy like Brad Stevens looks at what he can do on the floor and says, that guy is worth $27 million to me.
Do you think it's going to continue to work as Stevens continues to develop the team? I mean, also, I know, Morris necessarily, with Marcus Morris developing, for example, I mean, obviously he's not the same kind of role player as Al Horford maybe, but, with Hayward coming back next season, I'm looking forward next season now, just as a kind of a long-term discussion of Al Horford. Do you think he's going to continue to fit in that role despite his lack of scoring ability? Do you think there's going to have to be a contract renegotiation at some point too? Because I don't think, looking at especially what your article points out about what he's been producing, how he's been producing lately, this last year doesn't scream to me, I want to keep paying you. What was it was like in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Like
it was 4 years, $113 million.
Yeah, $113 million. I mean, that's kind of pricey for a guy who's not giving you even double-double at all in any faction of the point.
No, let's just keep in mind, too, the first half of the season, Al Horford was, average-wise, having one of his best seasons ever in his career. Across the board. I'm not just talking about points per game. I'm just talking about every category possible. Field goal percentage, three-point percentage, rebounds, assists, everything. And it's just over these last few months, he started playing really poor. Now, again, we can have this conversation about how much is he really worth, but how much is any NBA player really worth? You know what I mean?
Right.
I do think how the Celtics' ability to keep guys like Aaron Baines and keep guys like Greg Monroe or have a Daniel Tice develop, I think that is all going to ultimately outweigh Al Horford's value to his team. Now, if they're not able to keep those guys, I think Al Horford's value becomes a lot more bigger for the Celtics. But if they keep those guys and a guy like Tice is able to work on his 3-point shot, like we've seen a few times this year, he's been able to really. I mean, beginning of the year, he wasn't taking any 3-pointers, and then you see throughout the whole year, you see him develop, which is crazy since he's just a rookie.
Exactly.
But I really think that the development of the big men that are young on this team is going to ultimately decide how long Al Horford stays on this team and whether his contract gets negotiated or not.
Right, because he could be squeezed out of it. These guys start, kind of overperforming in that aspect. Obviously they're not. I feel like they're not as built as big as Al was far and away kind of the biggest one on the team. He's the team's big man, even though he's not the center. But I also wanted to ask too. Here's what I heard from the take from somebody else also on the radio earlier this week. I kind of agree with this take. Do you see that Al Horford is a good player? He's great, but he's not a different word from next contract. I guess he's not like a LeBron James category, not a LeBron James category, but not in the same category as where you listed in Carmelo Anthony. He's not in the same caliber. I wouldn't prime Carmelo Anthony, or you're talking about any star big man in the league today. I don't think he kind of matches up to the tier 1 category. He's not a tier 1.
He's not. He's definitely not a tier 1 guy.
No,
definitely not. I mean, the way you get into tier 1 in the NBA is just by scoring points.
Oh, right.
It doesn't matter
a highlight,
what, yeah, it doesn't matter what position you play. If you score a lot of points, you're going to get put in tier 1. It doesn't matter how bad your defense is or anything like that. James Harden played terrible defense for years at the beginning, in his early stages of the Rockets, and he was still one of the best players in the league because if you score 25, 30 points a game, it doesn't matter how bad your defense is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess what I get annoyed about, though, is I guess the Abby Chins of the world and the sideline reporters of the world who, I guess there's no lie that the Celtics the media that follows the Celtics. Not saying you, I'm saying that the close on-court media, day-by-day media, like the Tommy Lasordas of the world. Like they're not really the most objective, biased kind of reporting when it comes to that team. So I think when I see the Abby Chins of the world go on Comcast Sportsnet and try to compare Al Horford to Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Garnett had a least productive season after his 2008 season, it kind of seems silly. I mean, it was Kevin Garnett. He almost won the MVP in 2008. He should have. I mean, I
think it just has to do, like you said, they're in the locker rooms all the time. They see the kind of guy Al Horford is, so it's hard for them to rag on him.
Oh, it's cute.
They just see the kind of guy he is. I mean, when you look at the way Al Horford presents himself and works every single day and what he's able to do for his teammates and for himself. I mean, you got to have a lot of respect for him. And I have a lot of respect for him. I have not even met or talked to him one time. So I can only imagine people like Abby Chin and other guys, from NBC Sports Boston. They're in there every single day and talking about him, and in the locker rooms talking to every single player on the team. It's really hard to rag on a guy like Al Horford when he goes through a small stretch like this where he's struggling. Now, if we go through the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs and he continues playing bad, and now we're going into next season and there's questions to be raised, I think then that's when they're going to start, having more negative comments about him. But it hasn't been a long enough stretch of bad play from Al Horford for them to start just holding the pitchforks. And
I think if Kyrie Irving is going to be out, if he's getting things pulled and put back in and all this stuff, I think it's going to start showing more and more when they start needing more. I mean, yeah, he can transition the ball around, but you eventually got to work the ball down low and be able to score. And when he's falling flat in his face, it's kind of and scoring 7 points a game. Again, I know I'm harping on the points per game, but I just think that in the NBA today, especially when it's so. When the points are inflated, unimaginably since 10, 20 years ago, I think it's more important to have a guy who can score more than a guy who can just transition the ball and set up other scores. I think he needs to be utilized as an actual scorer down low.
Man, I completely agree. And I'm watching last night. I watched the game against Portland, and I've just been trying to figure out what exactly his deal is. And I think last night I kind of wrapped up what exactly I get so frustrated with Al Horford from. And it's at this point in time, through February and through March, and we're gonna get into April, obviously within a week. He gets he does not take a 3-point shot now unless he is wide open. He just looks a little bit scared to take the shot now. He'd rather dish it out to somebody else. He kind of has that. I don't want to compare him to Rajon Rondo because Rajon Rondo is a completely different beast. There's no other guy like him in the NBA, mentality wise. But I feel like he's more content with dishing off a shot to somebody else and having somebody else drive to the hoop and get the basket or hit a 3-point shot rather than him taking it himself unless he is wide open. And that wasn't the kind of mentality he had in the first half of the season. He could have a guy 2 feet in front of him and he'd take a 3-point shot and he'd have relative success with it.
He'd have sex with it?
Success.
Okay.
Yeah. Success with it.
No, but no, I get that too, especially if you're playing in a place like Boston. When you hear, especially coming from a place where, the Larry Birds of the world, the McHales of the world who played, the Paul Pierces of the world, the Kevin Garnetts of the world have played. They want a guy who's going to get, kind of attack, an attacker, not a guy who dishes it off. No, I think it kind of compares to, not totally, but kind of LeBron James's kind of sense where he kind of chickens out and will pass it off to somebody else to take the final shot.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it as much anymore, but kind of when he was on the Heat, he would, he had 2 other, all-stars to dish it off to. I think that you're kind of right where he's okay with kind of throwing it around, but I think but where does that come in where he, launches 3-pointers on an exponential level compared to when he first started? Why wouldn't he be kind of a, if he was gonna go out and try to score more for himself and not spread the ball around as much, why wouldn't he take inside shots? Kevin Garnett never left the never left the 3-point line. He was always taking shots right inside of it. He can even do that. Wouldn't that even kind of up his percentages?
I mean, in a couple weeks ago, he went on his sister Anna. He went on her podcast and it talked about trying to get out of the slump. And he had mentioned, this is right after the All-Star break, mentioned that he wanted to put in a more avid attempt of driving to the basket and getting to the rim or getting to the charity stripe. That way, he can generate more points for his team. Well, when you're going against guys like Anthony Davis, that's really hard to do because the ball's going to get swatted away a lot. You know what I mean? Like we just mentioned before, Al Horford is not the biggest big man out there in the NBA.
Yeah.
So his chances of getting to the basket, he scores his points because of his versatility at his size, with his ball skills and whatnot. So for him to move back to the 3-point line and take a shot seems to make a lot more sense when you're going against a team like New Orleans or even a team like Oklahoma City the other night when you got a guy like Steven Adams sitting in the paint.
Yeah.
It seems more to make sense that he's going to go back to the 3-point line and take a 3-point shot, but it just seems.
I will say he needs help and length. He needs some more length down low with him. Feeding the you can swing the ball all you want, but if you're swinging at the guys who are 6'5" and under, it's not going to help you much down low against OKC.
Yeah, and it just frustrates me because I think he understands this. So he'll go out to the 3-point line and start facilitating the ball from around there. But then when it gets the ball, makes his way back to him, he has an open shot, he won't take it. And it just frustrates me because if he just took 2 to 3 more 3-pointers a game, you'd see more scoring out of him. It's just he's not taking the shot attempts he should. He's taking 8 or 9 shots total in the game, and I think he should be taking close to 12
which is way
to 15.
too low, especially
it is way too low.
Yeah, if you're a big man, no matter how crucial he is with setting up shots or assists or anything like that, 8 attempts is bad. It's not even putting yourself in a position to win at all.
And I mean, if Kyrie Irving was back in the lineup right now, Jaylen Brown was back in the lineup,
things would
right
be clicking.
Yeah, and he was taking that many shots, I'd be like, okay. But when the team is looking for more scoring, Terry Rozier, last night I think he had 14 points and like 6 rebounds. I think that's what you're going to get out of Terry Rozier on a night-to-night basis. That's going to be like an average for him for the rest of the season into the playoffs. So when you see that differential between him and Kyrie Irving in terms of points, and then you see guys like Jaylen Brown who haven't come back to the lineup yet, you can't expect them to score more points. Tatum's had his nights where he scored in the 20s. Marcus Morris scored 30 points last night. You're not going to see that every single night from those guys. But what you can see and what you should expect from a guy that's getting $27 million a year is to score, 15 points a night. I'm not asking too much. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's why I think it's almost like the Red Sox kind of syndrome, where they gave David Price all this this huge contract, and he doesn't. He was way worse. He was a way different scenario. Yeah, but it's kind of a similar feel where it's like, what are we paying you for?
Yeah.
To go out there and be he's a good transition player. Like, okay,
yeah,
that's worth $27 million.
Yeah.
Okay, but I also think too, what people forget, and I'm victim of this too. Even this current discussion, that this team was built to have Gordon Hayward involved too. I mean, that's going to be a big factor next year when you have two guys who are top players in the top 10 players in the league. Well, if you can maybe count Gordon Hayward, we caught top 10, but you have two prominent players, spreading the ball around, setting each other up. That's going to only put. If you have Gordon Hayward on the perimeter, I'm assuming, shooting more of the deep ball, you can set up Al Horford easily inside the paint and have him go, either a give and go or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. This situation frustrates me so much because I know it's just a small amount of play, and we're getting into a situation like we started off the show with talking about Kyrie Irving, and if it turns out that he can't play at all this season because of what they find in his knees today, then this whole conversation doesn't really matter because they're really not going to go anywhere. But when you're getting paid that much money, you need to produce in some way, and he's just not doing that right now. That's why I get frustrated. If you're not going to score, facilitate and play defense, and if you're not going to do either one of those, you need to be putting points in the board for your team because you're getting paid to do a certain thing for your team, and you're not doing that right now.
If Ainge and Stevens came to Horford at the end of the season, say they lost in the second round or whatever, and they said, "Look, we need a restructure. We got to restructure, even if it's going to shave, just shaving some stuff off the back. We can't pay this much money." How do you think Horford would react? Will he look to set sail somewhere else?
How do I think he wants to react, or how do I think he will react?
How do you think he will react?
Based off of what I've seen and how he holds himself, I think that he'll be willing to do that because he wants to win a championship.
Yeah, you don't think he's going to go money grabbing to like a New York Knicks or anything like that, or
I don't think Al Horford's that kind of person. I think he came to the Celtics because he wants to win. He was sick of all those years in Atlanta going nowhere, and he's 31 years old right now. What does he have left to do? He's not a Hall of Fame player. He's not shooting for any top 10 all-time numbers. So what else does he have to play for besides a championship?
Although this could be his last big payday anyway. I mean, say if he was living up to it, this contract could be over by the time he's 33, 34.
Yeah. It's not even saying could be. This will be his last big payday.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to get paid more than this.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to give max contract money again to a guy who's going to be done.
No.
Unless you're Tim Duncan, but he's gone. But I think that with Steve, I think that the only scenario I see Horford leaving is like a trade scenario. I think that's the only really appropriate. I mean, who would you trade? It has to be a package deal. You couldn't just give him one-on-one for somebody unless. Who would even match up? That's the only thing. He's just like an anomaly player. Like if he was having more point production, but had say less of an impact, on rebounding or whatever, or say it was vice versa. Say it was like even more inflated numbers and just assists and rebounds. I think he'd be more of an option. But I think the lack of I think it even affects some of the upper management in some of the clubs. They're kind of like, well, this guy's giving me 7 points. It's like, and they also don't have the coach, the coach and Stevens to match up with that mentality to utilize Horford the right way.
Yeah, it's a very specific scenario. You have to be with Al Horford and trading him because you need to be able to trade him to a team that's going to utilize him in the proper system. Al Horford's a very systematic player, so you've seen Brad Stevens get the very best out of him, even though that's not the case right now. But there's a couple different factors to that. But a guy like Anthony Davis is like one of the only things I can see them trading for.
Yeah, that's always a pipe dream.
Exactly.
No, that's not.
It is always. It's a pipe dream. But if they're willing, if they want to win now and they don't care about draft picks in the future, then it's not that crazy of a scenario. I mean, like I said before, Danny Ainge's phone is always open to New Orleans in terms of talking about a trade.
Yeah, and
so is every other team in the NBA. But
he knows how to work a deal too.
He absolutely does. Yes.
And do you think that the hindsight's always 20/20, but you think that looking back on it, that Ainge regrets doing this deal, or do you think he's kind of waiting to see how it plays out still?
I think he's still waiting to see how it plays.
I'd say so. I think overall you have to look at it as a rough patch. Whether you have my mindset in Horford or yours, I think as an executive standpoint, you have to look at it as, okay, this could be a rough patch. It's still not even halfway done with the contract, I don't think.
No, I think he still has 2 more years left on it.
2 more years?
No, he's got 1 more year left on it. It was 4 years. He's been on the team for 3 years now.
I'm saying they restructure. Yeah. They're going to have to restructure.
Yeah, they should. And the way I look at it is, to answer your question, I mean, if they don't come out of his contract with a championship, I think he views it as a failed attempt to get one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're coming on. It's now 10 years. Yeah, it's over a decade now. Now we're back in the same kind of boat that the Celtics were in 2007 or 8ish. I mean, not they weren't a lackluster team and having people chant Kobe Bryant for MVP, but they. People in South, Boston, they want playoff performances, and going to the Eastern Conference Finals, for the last how many, or not all the time, but getting knocked out in the first, second round of the playoffs, almost every year is not going to cut it at all.
No, I mean going into the summer of 2016 when they were trying to find that big free agent to finally make that move towards a championship, Kevin Durant was on the free agency. They were trying to get him, obviously, going out to the Hamptons and trying to promote Brady and IT and all those guys. I think David Ortiz might have been out there too.
Yeah, they even sent the president out.
Exactly. They tried to do everything. Obviously, it didn't work out. But the next best guy they felt was Al Horford, which is why they signed him.
That's a big jump, obviously, but
it is a big jump, exactly. Yeah. But they gave him that money with the expectation that I think by now they would have had a championship, and that's not the case yet. So there's no doubt in my mind that if they can't get a championship by 2019, it's going to be definitely a failed attempt.
Yeah, I mean, all these conversations essentially also how good any player really is kind of been useless since one of the main cogs of the operation was injured 6 minutes into the season. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a rough one anyway. It's funny, though, because you see the real hardcore green teamers, it's almost like they're in fantasy land. Like, oh, everything's great. No, it's okay. He didn't get injured. No, who's that? No. It's like they're in like a false reality. Like they're somehow going to make it to the finals and have it, compete with Golden State. That's what you see. So I feel like that's like the sense from a lot of like green teamers who don't dig in, who aren't digging into, they kind of just turn on the game. They, go Celtics. They're wearing the same shirt.
Now, I kind of want to turn the table here a little bit and talk about the best case scenario for the Celtics this year.
Okay. All right.
So, we're talking about, Hayward's out. Kyrie Irving could be out for the rest of the season. So, let's just chalk it up and talk about 2019. But let's say that Kyrie Irving, to go and check out his knee today, there's no signs of serious arthritis or there's no serious structural damage underneath his kneecap. So it's about a 6 to 8 week timetable for him to come back. So he'll be back right around the same time.
Playoffs is...
be about a week after Marcus Smart. So somewhere in the middle of the second round of the playoffs. Now, depending on who they play in the first round, it could be like a Miami, it could be Washington, depending on how these next few games end up. I think there's about a little under 10 games left in the season. Let's say they make it out of the first round. If you look at the way the rest of the NBA is setting up right now, you got Cleveland, no Ty Lue. You could have a conversation about how much that really matters, not having the head coach. But that team's still struggling just as much as they were before the trade deadline.
Right.
But when they got all those players. Toronto, I say this a million times, I'm going to say it again because I like to stick to it. I think it's a good comparison. I view the Toronto Raptors as the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA. They're always really good. They're always the talk about, going somewhere in the playoffs, and then they always manage to screw it up somehow.
They're like the Blue Jays. They'll scare you, then they're always the third place
Exactly.
team. Yeah.
So with that being said, those are the two best teams I view besides the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Then you look at the Western Conference. Let's say
it's men versus boys.
Let's say the best case scenario for the Celtics is the Golden State Warriors make it to the finals. They're banged up right now.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is getting. I saw something this morning from Shams Charania. I think is how you pronounce his name. I think he works for ESPN. He's getting his knee checked out today as well, and he could have a knee sprain, so he could be out several weeks because of that. So, I mean, it could be a knee sprain, could be worse, could be not anything but that, but he's injured. Kevin Durant's been injured, I believe it with a back injury, and then there was, I think Draymond Green's been banged up a little bit as well. No, it was Klay Thompson, not Draymond Green. Klay Thompson has been banged up as well. So this is a team.
Three of their stars, yeah.
Yeah, they're stars, but they're also aging. You know what I mean? They're not the only one that's not aging in the league.
Right.
But
well, also a lot of the teams are injured anyway. I mean, the Celtics are probably the least. If you talk about pure numbers and who. The pure talent who's injured, minus Gordon Hayward, he's been a constant. But, it's really just Irving who's the real sore here. I mean, Marcus Smart, you missed, but really just in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So I think there's something we said that, Celtics might be going banged up into playoffs, but I think people forget that they're not the only team that's banged up and tired this time of the year because they're only hearing it because they're in the Boston community right now. But going through the playoffs, they're going to deal with a lot of other teams. They're going to, some other person could get injured on another team during one of these series that we don't know about right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's crazy to think that if Kyrie's able to come back and play even at 90%, and then have Marcus Smart come back in the second round, I don't think it's crazy to think that they could still make a push to the finals. Maybe not win it. Because if Houston makes it to the finals, I don't think they have a chance of ever coming out of that series with even 2 wins.
Oh no, they proved that in the last time they played them.
Yeah, I mean Houston's just playing on a whole
What did Harden
level
have
right
50 last time they played them?
Yeah, and right now I believe the Rockets are 30.
They're on fire.
31-3 over the last 34 games.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I mean they're playing at a ridiculous level. So
they could even knock off Golden State.
No, they could.
Yeah, exactly.
They could. But I'm saying if somehow Golden State manages to beat them, and they go to the finals, I think Celtics could get a few games against them. I'm not saying they could win the finals, but I don't think Celtics fans should go in with the expectation that it's going to be a one and done round.
No, that's going to happen. If Golden State stays injured, that sounds it's such a sexy matchup for the Celtics.
It really is. It is.
It would be a wash. I mean, I wouldn't even be nervous going into that game. If you have Irving versus nobody.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you look, you think about some of the stars in these teams, and let's say one of them gets injured, another one gets kind of banged up. If it comes down to straight coaching, I think we got the best coach in the league.
Yeah,
so,
take away Popovich, and Stevens is the best coach in the league.
Yeah.
And really, Popovich, honestly, he's kind of a product of what he's had also. I mean, he's good. I'm not going to take that away from him, but he hasn't. Stevens has not had nearly the amount of talent as Popovich has been granted in his coaching career.
I do have to give Popovich credit this year, though. I mean, without Kawhi Leonard, he still managed to push for a playoff spot, and that's true. There's something to be said. He doesn't have many good players in that team right now. I couldn't name you a handful of players.
It's an old team too.
Yeah, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, but they're how old are they now, and how much are they really contributing to that team?
Not really anything. I mean, exactly. I think aren't they both? Isn't Parker off the bench too?
I think they're both off the bench.
Yeah, that's
now.
crazy.
Yeah. Yep,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, I think that's all we got for today. It's kind of a slow thing, kind of a slow part of the sports world here. But Devon, thanks for stopping by again. We're gonna have you on again when Jimmy gets his butt back here. He kind of left us last second, but he had a wedding to go to, a family wedding, so we're wishing him a good time there, and I'll beat him up next time over it. But we're definitely gonna have you in soon, especially around playoffs if you ever want to come back. And you can reach Devon at you can find his work at CLNS Media, get all NBA Celtics coverage. He updates that. He's well in depth. Read his article. He actually just sent me too. The Is your latest one? Do you have anything else since then?
That's my latest one I got so far.
Latest one. So it's title, if I can pull it up real quick. Are Boston Celtics getting their money's worth from Al Horford? After another subpar outing and a blowout loss, the Al Horford situation has grown tiresome. That's by Devon Clements. You can catch that on clnsmedia.com. And what's your Twitter handle again?
@CLNSDev.
Give him a read. He's a good guy, all right? Devon, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thanks for having me
Have a
on.
good one.